king size or regular, America's finest cigarette presents
Racket, squad.
What you're about to see is a real-life story, taken from the official files of the police racket and bunco squads, business protective associations, and similar sources. It is presented as a public service by Philip Morris, a company whose product deserves your support and patronage. I smoke Philip Morris myself. I have for a long time, because I know the Philip Morris manufacturing process. And I'm convinced that this cigarette is as fine as human care and scientific skill can make it. It's truly a fine, superior cigarette. I recommend it for your pleasure. As a rule, a person who has been swindled comes to this department with a complaint. And from that point on, we start our investigation. I remember one case, however, where I stumbled into a situation simply because I happened to be a philatelist. Philatelist? Stamp collector. Whenever I'm in the neighborhood, I stop in at Coswick's stamp shop and say hello to Mr. Coswick. Sometimes picking up a few stamps to add to my collection.
Ah, here they are.
United Nations Postal Administrative issue.
Yes. Now, that's one series I know you'll want.
Right you are. Let's see, 11 stamps in the regular issue.
And 4 airmails. 6, 10, 15, and 25 cents.
How much is that altogether?
$2, 8 and a half. Total face value. You'll want the complete sheets of 50, eh?
I'm a collector, not an investor, Larry.
Would you mind looking through these for a while? They just arrived from Madrid.
Yeah, sure, thanks.
I'll see you in a minute. Good afternoon.
How do you do?
Can I help you?
Yes. Do you appraise stamp collections?
Oh, yes, indeed.
Then would you mind?
Let me. Of course, I can hardly give you an appraisal unless you left it with me for a few days.
I'd rather not. If you could just give me an approximate idea.
Well, let's see. Let's see.
Well?
Well, it's hardly what I'd call a valuable collection. I should say it's worth about 75.
75?
Oh, I know. The satisfaction of accumulating a stamp collection sometimes gives the owner an exaggerated idea of its value. But really, that's about all it's worth.
Oh. Well, frankly, I brought the album here because I was beginning to wonder if it was even worth 50,000.
1,000?
Why, yes. Isn't that what you meant? 75,000?
Well, I'm sorry you misunderstood me. I meant to say $75.
$75. I wonder if I might just sit down.
Why, certainly. Captain Braddock. Captain Braddock. This lady, she thought her stamp collection was worth a fortune.
And what is it worth?
75, tops $100. Oh, it's quite all right. This is Captain Braddock, head of the police racket squad.
Mrs. I'm a widow, Mrs. May Norton.
It seems you have the kind of problem I might be able to help you with, Mrs. Norton. Perhaps if you were to tell me a little bit about it, how it all started.
You know, it almost seems funny. I've heard of things like this, but I never thought it could happen to me.
How did it happen?
I really don't know. It was about a year after my husband died that I started traveling in a new circle of friends. I was giving a small cocktail party. That's beautiful, Jim. Oh, excuse me. Harry, I'm so glad you could make it. Come in.
Hope you don't mind an unexpected guest.
Not if he's a friend of yours.
Paul, I want you to meet one of the loveliest ladies in America, Mrs. Norton. May, this is my dear friend, Paul Rostand. Paul's from Vienna.
Welcome.
I'm honored.
And I'm thirsty.
Excuse me. Well, we can take care of that in a hurry.
Good.
Where did you find him?
Paul's all right. You know these wealthy Europeans, they can't resist a new pair of ankles. I knew his family long before the war. He's got money, background. He's a good catch for somebody.
A bow and arrow, and you'd look just like Cupid.
Who, me? That's the farthest thing from my mind.
What's the closest, a martini?
A double martini, I'm starved.
Permit me.
Well, that was quick.
Yes, and painful. The lady has a husband. In America, they mix drinks.
And in Vienna?
We create them.
What's so creative about a mere martini?
The secret of a good martini is its dryness.
And how dry can a martini be?
Well, you taste it and you'll tell me.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Anytime you want a job as bartender, you have my unequivocal recommendation.
And I thank you.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I'll circulate.
You know, he is the only friend I have in this large country of yours.
Oh, don't worry. Soon you'll have lots more.
Right now, I've decided I'd settle for one more.
Oh?
Very much so.
Dinner that evening was just the beginning. Paul Rostand literally whirled May Norton off her feet. He had tickets for all the best shows. They spent many an afternoon at the races. Flowers every day. And romance every night.
Voila.
Oh, I've never seen anything quite so beautiful.
American scenery is surpassed by only one fact.
I know. European scenery.
No. The beauty of American women. Certain ones, that is. Do you know why I rented this house? It reminds me of my villa on the Riviera.
Villa on the Riviera. Overlooking the blue Mediterranean. Oh, that's to dream about.
Close your eyes and I'll take you there. A house built above the beach. And below, the gentle breaking of waves. There is a full moon. And the brilliant stars are shining like diamonds. And there is a beautiful girl. And next to her is a man who loves this girl very much. What's the matter?
Too much magic out there. If that's a sample of your Mediterranean, it's much better than etchings.
Etchings. But I do have etchings.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Let me show you. Here are my etchings.
Why, they're only stamps.
Yes. And on them, some of the finest etching the world has ever seen.
You're a collector?
Yes, that's my hobby. Do you know anything about stamps?
Oh, yes, a little. An airmail costs 6 cents, and a penny postcard costs 2 cents.
Is that all? You might find it fascinating. One learns a lot about people and countries with old stamps.
Well, it does sound interesting.
I'll tell you what. If you are really interested, tomorrow we'll visit the International Stamp Agency. But first, we'll have lunch at the La Casetta. It's a charming Italian restaurant. I think you'll like it. All right?
That'll be fine.
Good. Oh, the 1 penny black. Oh, yes. I have several of these. They must be worth about $2,000 by now.
Well, at present, it catalogs at $2,500.
Really? Now, you see, I don't even know the... value of my own stamps. Oh, Mr. Wilson, I wish you would acquire the British Guiana 1-penny stamp for me.
Well, I'll try very hard, but after all, $50,000 is...
$50,000 for one stamp?
Yes, madam. It's the only one. Oh, excuse me, I'll catch the phone. I'll be right back.
I had no idea stamps could be worth so much.
Oh, yes, they are. Look at these, for instance. The Zeppelin issue. Originally, they cost $4.55.
And their value has increased?
$125, to be exact. The 2 sheets I bought at original cost, catalog now at $12,500.
Do you still have all of them?
Oh, some of them. Some of them I traded for other valuable stamps. That's part of the fun of collecting. But it's no competition to you.
Did you drop by, Harry?
You can't let Paul have a monopoly. Oh, I know you two have been seeing each other almost constantly.
Can you blame me? He's charming.
You can't blame him either, only...
Only what?
I'm worried about him.
Well, that's hardly flattering.
Oh, you know I don't mean it that way. I'm more than grateful he's in your good hands.
Well, then what seems to be the trouble?
The way that man runs through money.
He can well afford to.
In Europe, yes. But American dollars? That's something else.
We must have transferred certain accounts here. Why, only this afternoon he tried to buy a stamp for $50,000.
Just what I'm talking about, May. He doesn't seem to realize he must put a stop to his spending until his money's cleared through the Foreign Exchange Board. A man can take only so much out of his country, you know.
He doesn't seem to be worried.
He isn't, but I am.
Why should you be?
Paul asked me for a $2,500 loan. Now that he's filed application to extend his permit to remain in this country, he must post a bond with the immigration authorities to cover whatever expenses might be incurred.
A bond is nothing. It just means taking money out of one account and depositing it in another.
Yes, I realize that. The trouble is, only yesterday I was down at the bank and, well, I tied up all my extra cash in a new investment.
Oh, I see. Well, couldn't I put up the bond? After all, it's just security.
If Paul thought for one moment that you were helping him, he'd... Well, you can imagine how he'd feel.
But there's no reason I can't give you the money. And Paul won't have any idea where it came from when you put up the bond.
Oh, May, you're wonderful.
I hope Paul thinks so. He's picking me up for dinner.
Well, I'd better go before he gets here. I wouldn't want him to know we were talking about him.
Thank you, Renee.
Paul, where do you find these places? The food here is simply delicious.
Good. Yes. But delicious. No. Wait until you dine in restaurants like the Dry Hussaren in Vienna, Brunier in Paris, or the famous Capriccio in Rome.
Oh, I've often dreamed of visiting those places.
A visit? A visit is like a passing fancy. To really enjoy it, one must live there.
Oh, I thought you wanted to live here, in this country.
Oh, yes, I want my home to be here. But travel is good for the soul. And I thought if we spent half of our time abroad and then we...
Hello, Rostad.
Good evening. May I present Mr. West? Mrs. Norton.
Delighted to meet you, Mrs. Norton. Mind if I join you for a moment?
No, for a moment.
Do you mind? Well, Rostad.
Care for a drink?
No, thanks. Well, how about it?
If you are referring to my stamp collection, could we do business later, alone?
No, look here, Rostad. Face facts. I know you are in need of American dollars, and I'm ready to do business with you now.
It's all right, Paul.
Mr. West, I've told you before, in a matter of weeks, I will have a considerable fortune in this country, and there will be no need of assistance from you or anyone else.
Well, I wouldn't be too sure of that. The transfer of currency from one country to another is a tedious procedure. It might take 3 or 4 months before your money comes through.
I hardly think so.
Well, I'm prepared to advance some money to you. $5,000. Just a loan from me to you.
Oh, how generous of you. And no security, eh?
Well, naturally, I expect security. Let's say 25% interest in your stamp collection if the money isn't repaid within 60 days.
Ridiculous. You know quite well that my collection worth at least $50,000.
But you can't live on stamps, Rostad. What do you say?
Your concern about me is really touching. Don't you worry about me.
All right.
You worry. Sooner or later, you'll have to sell that collection, then I'll buy it on my terms. Goodbye, Mrs. Norton.
Paul, do you really need the money?
For the first time in my life, I do need money.
Well, perhaps you'd let me advance you some. Oh, until yours came through.
Oh, don't be silly.
You've got to be practical. You can't live on credit.
I'm beginning to find that out.
Then why argue with me?
On one condition.
And that is?
Strictly on business basis.
Oh, but I don't...
No buts about it, May. Either you accept a written lien against my stamp collection, or no loan.
All right. We'll do it your way. See, darling, I'm off.
Obviously, you weren't expecting me, Mrs. Norton.
Obviously.
I'll only be a minute. I think you will be interested in what I have to say.
I really haven't much time. Paul, Mr. Rostown will be here shortly.
Oh, then I'd better come to the point. I have a check for you, Mrs. Norton, for $7,500.
What's that for?
Your lien against Rostown's stamp collection. You can make a quick profit of $2,500.
What makes you so sure I advanced money to Mr. Rostown?
Well, there are ways of finding out things like that.
Whatever you found out is my business.
And acquiring rare stamps happens to be mine. Figure it this way, Mrs. Norton. You'll be making 50% on your investment.
It's not that kind of an investment. That must be Mr. Rostown now.
You're adorable. What is he doing here?
Suppose you ask him.
Well, Mr. West?
Good evening, Rostand.
Is it?
Frankly, no. I've just been trying to buy Mrs. Norton's interest in your stamp collection. But don't worry, my friend. Mrs. Norton thinks more of you than she does of the stamps.
I think we have finished our discussion, Mr. West.
I'm afraid we have. Good night.
I'll make it up to you, my dear. Be patient. Only for a few days, or at the most, a few weeks. Huh? Shall we go now? Let's.
Hello, May.
Hello, Harry.
Glad you could make it.
I came as soon as I received your message. Is something wrong?
Not really.
Is it Paul?
No, there's nothing the matter with Paul. But there is something I thought you should know. Paul's going to sell his stamp collection.
Well, that's his privilege. Oh, look, Harry. You don't think I'm worried about the money I loaned him?
No, but he is. That's why he's letting it go for $10,000.
$10,000? Why, it's worth 5 times that much.
The stamps aren't important to Paul, but you are.
He doesn't think I need the money.
No, but he does think he ought to repay you before he proposes.
Before he proposes?
That's right, May. Paul's in love with you.
Well, I can't say it's exactly one-sided.
That's why you've got to understand how he feels and how it would appear on the surface if he proposed marriage to a lady he owes money to. So he's letting the entire collection go to Norman West.
That man.
But it's the only way. After he gives you the $5,000 he borrowed and returns the $2,500 he thinks I posted for his bond, there'll be no more financial obligations.
Harry, couldn't I buy the collection?
Oh, I suppose you could. If anything happened, you'd have your money back and perhaps a little profit.
Oh, don't be absurd. I wouldn't sell Paul's stamps. I'll give them back to him as a wedding present.
All I can say is, Paul's more fortunate than any man deserves to be.
Oh, he's sweet, but he's too sensitive for his own good. I wouldn't want him to know that I have the album until after we were married.
Well, suppose I tell him a friend of mine, a collector, is buying the stamps. That all right with you?
Oh, that's fine, Harry. Anything you say.
All right, then. How about some lunch?
Good.
Waiter?
Mix me a drink?
The same?
Mm-hmm.
was a time when I thought the waltz was meant only for Vienna. But now I know better. It's not where you are. It's who is in your arms.
$7, $8, $9, $10,000. It had to be cash, Harry. I wouldn't want him to find out. It happened before.
You're very thoughtful, May.
And rather very much in love and about to be married.
I wish you all the happiness in the world. Believe me, my dear, you have no idea what you're doing for Paul.
Tell me, Mrs. Norton, did you ever meet Paul or Harry again?
No, I never saw them. But I did hear from Harry.
And when was that?
That same night. It was right around dinner time.
May? May, I have wonderful news for you. Paul just received word from New York that 100 million lira has been cleared through the Foreign Exchange Board.
100 million?
That's about 150,000 American dollars. And all he has to do is fly back to New York and pick it up.
Oh, Harry, that's wonderful news. I'm so happy for him.
But you're not supposed to know anything about it. He wants to surprise you.
All right. That'll be our secret.
Just 3 more days, May, and you and Paul can be together the way you should be. In the meantime, don't let Wes get near that stamp album.
Oh, don't worry. That's going to be a wedding present for someone. Remember?
Oh, yes, that's right. Well, don't worry about a thing, May. All right? Goodbye.
All set?
Yes, the group is all set. They played their parts well. Harry Johnson, the contact man, Wilson of the International Stamp Agency, and of course, Paul Rostand. They're to meet the last member of the group, the insistent stamp buyer, Norman West, at the airport in 20 minutes. And from there, they plan to fly far into Mexico. Come in, Mrs. Norton.
Thank you.
I ask you down here because I think we have some good news for you. Won't you be seated? Can you identify this man?
This is Harry Johnson.
And this?
Mr. West.
And there's no doubt that this is Paul Rostand.
Yes, that's Paul. It's hard to believe.
Confidence men operate in a very strange manner, Mrs. Norton. Sometimes so does the law.
The law?
Yes. Paul Rostand tried to cross the Mexican border and was stopped by immigration authorities and held for illegally entering this country by way of Canada. His Confederates were with him, protecting their interest, as it were. Your $17,500.
Well, the money doesn't really matter. The joker is, I really loved the guy.
If someone is playing a tune on your heartstrings for a substantial sum of money, beware. Remember, it could happen to you.